yourself if you can't put the connection between OU getting the punter from Kennesaw State and then going back and getting the tight end. Obviously, they saw this guy in the punting film, looked at him and said, on special teams, right? Most tight ends are a part of your special teams groups, right? I mean, that's just a fairly obvious. That's an obvious statement, right? I mean, So I think obviously they saw him on special teams and went back and looked at his tight end film and made the offer. He chose OU over West Virginia. His other visits are, Conference USA, AAC type, places. I'm not going to imply that this is a 5-star guy or a 4-star guy that I've been tracking for years and I'm familiar with him. But you needed a body at tight end. He played tight end all through high school, so it's not like he's Bauer Sharp, who moved to tight end like the year before he got to OU. Still didn't really know the position when he showed up in Norman. Was really learning the position, having moved from quarterback. Carson's a tight end. He's played tight end. He was blocking and doing, all the blocking things you expect from a tight end and on high school footage. When I saw his film, I was like, if OU had offered him, I'd been like, okay, that's, it's not the world's worst offer I've seen from a tight end. So I think that's, you've added somebody to the tight end room. Now, I think you're not going to – there's a possibility you might see the second tight end, the kid from Kansas who transferred to Pittsburgh State, who's 6'7", 250. His follows on Twitter indicate that OU's pretty heavily in play. His last name's Phillips. So I guess maybe you could pick him up as well, which I think would indicate that somebody else from the tight end room is going to be leaving soon. So I think that's where it is. But to be honest, I don't think we're going to see anything glamorous from the tight end position until we have a new tight end coach. And I'm hoping the Joe John Finley era has only been extended to maintain some fragment of continuity for play calling for the bowl game. And then he will bid us adieu and make his exit stage left. And we will hire someone else who will then make a move on another tight end. But it's tough. The guy they really liked, I think, from Ball State chose Wisconsin. Stayed home basically that part of the country. Obviously, they lost the defensive end they brought in, who chose Ohio State. The Idaho State guy got big money to go to Ohio State. I do like they picked up Derek Simmons, I think, since the last time we talked, and I like him a lot. He is from Western Carolina, but if you did not listen to, don't watch Gabe Eichard's In the Weeds video on Derek Simmons, I recommend you watch that. Simmons played left tackle, left guard, and right guard for Western Carolina last year, was switching between left tackle and right tackle but in between series when they played NC State. Does a good job. Gabe's pretty high on him, and Gabe was not very high on Spencer Brown or Tarquin last year. So Gabe's gonna call it about offensive line. He's gonna be pretty hypercritical, and he thinks that's a really big pickup. So Simmons measured when he was on campus at OU 6'5", 330. So he's a big kid. He's pretty athletic for that position. So I think you could see right now, I think he's the obvious plug-in at right tackle until we see Jacob Sexton, not hurt again. And I think, you start setting up some pieces and some depth if you can get Sexton back. I think Howland, Sexton, and Simmons give you 3 tackles, better than the 3 tackle circumstance we had last year. Mm-hmm. So I think Simmons was a big pickup. They missed out on Jaron Bradley, who chose Kansas State. I think OU was very much like, you want to come here and work with Emmett Jones? We're fine with that, but we're not going to give you any kind of, big cash to do that. And Bradley took the money and went to K-State instead. OU's being very, very they're being very cautious with their NIL spends, trying to really assess value and use the resources and data from the service that they've contracted with, the guy from the Philadelphia Eagles, really trying to be very cautious and not overspending for guys. And I'll be honest, to me, the portal does not appear to have as many legit playmakers as last year.
Well, tell LSU that, because they just handing out money at this point.
Well, they are, but look at who they're picking up. I mean, they're picking up, there's question marks, and A&M's doing the same thing. They just gave Samuel Mpemba, I don't know how much money, and it's like everyone's like, oh, he's a 5-star. He was a 5-star 2 years ago, and he's done nothing at Georgia, an environment which, you would think if you're going to be excelling in the college game. I mean, I always worry about defensive transfers from Georgia and Alabama, right? If you weren't excelling there, why exactly were you not getting that done? So OU does need to add a defensive end, I think. I'm not sure which direction they'll head. I don't believe Marvin Jones Jr. has signed anywhere. I believe he's still out there. Let me check that real quick, make sure I'm not lying to you guys. Do you head in that direction? He hasn't found.
Yeah, I think he's still there.
I think he's
still real quick. Bishop Dindy signed with South Carolina, so that's done.
Yeah, we weren't looking at him. We
weren't looking at him anyways. Yeah.
Nah, he wanted to play. I mean, the problem is Dindy's like, well, I got to play, and OU's like, yeah, but you need to get a whole hell of a lot better before you really, it's like where he should go is not where he wanted to go, right? He should have gone OU, said, yeah, I'll get in the mix, and I need to be trained up by a defensive line guru, right? Like Todd Bates. Instead, he's going to go to South Carolina. Maybe they're losing enough personnel they can put him in. I think their D-line coach is pretty good. So, they're not returning Jaden Jackson and David Stone. That's, a lot of people, that's made defensive tackle recruiting in the portal for OU a little tough. They had the James Thompson kid in from Wisconsin. I don't think that's going to go anywhere. I think he's going to end up at Tennessee, because Tennessee is losing a truckload of defensive linemen and can offer him more or less a starting position. Same thing with the La Tech defensive tackle chose Miami. Miami's desperate for D-line talent because we took Jackson and Stone from them last year. They're desperate for D-line talent. We're able to offer him more money in a starting position. It's like for the Georgia Tech guy, that the tackle we talked about the previous week, who didn't end up visiting because OU had already gotten a commitment from Simmons. So OU is basically like, look, we've already got Simmons. We're at this point, and the Georgia Tech guy, I think saw Arkansas desperate and offered him a big amount of money and a starting position, basically a starting position, whereas OU's like, well, we've got guys you have to compete with to start, and that really wasn't resonating with I think his agents. So I think a lot of the guys you're seeing, are looking for guaranteed starting positions, and along the offensive line, I don't think OU is making those promises, and brought in two kids who, the Simmons kid, I think could start at right tackle, but, could a healthy, in shape, motivated, and only playing right tackle Jacob Sexton, could he challenge that guy? Yeah, sure. But the nice thing is you could plug Simmons in at guard if you wanted to. Or if Simmons beats out Sexton, you've now got Sexton to challenge Howland at left tackle, and you've now got, you've got some competition. You've got some things that we basically didn't have all year. It was basically, are you able to play? Start on the offensive line. And with the Baklenko kid also being a swing tackle, left-right tackle, having some experience as well, now we're in a position where the weakest position on the roster on the offensive line, depth-wise, was tackle, right? And now we've added two tackles. So I think the O-line, cynically, folks are like, oh, it's this Western Carolina guy. Well, okay. But everybody in college football wanted him. It's a Stanford guy. Okay, well, he started at Stanford. He's played 16 games for them. He's got a good size and potential and good frame. And Bill usually can work with these kind of guys. So I think, I think the defense, you want to get a cornerback. I don't know quite what's going on with Ethan O'Connor. We'll see where that goes. But defensive end, they're a little bit down. They're kind of rebooting at defensive tackle. Obviously, the Thompson kid to decide. I think OU's just waiting on him to decide where he wants to go before making the next wave and bringing kids in January. Bringing some kids in January to try and close out the class. But they were trying to kick the tires, I think, on the Kamori House kid, the Washington linebacker. He chose Michigan. He would have been a good addition, but Michigan grabbed him. So, Ohio State's going to get the big Rice kid, the big tackle from Rice. Ohio State got the Purdue tight end. They just got C.J. Donaldson from West Virginia. I mean, they're just – everyone's like, well, why can't we outspend Ohio State? Well, give OU 60,000 alums a year, and we'd be in a much better position to maybe have Ohio State's alumni base is just effing massive. It's just you're on mute, Chris. It's massive. So that's where I think I like the tight end edition. I'm not going to tell you and spin you and tell you this guy is the next Grant Calcaterra, but he looks like a good, solid piece. I like the 2 O-line additions based upon everything returning, and everybody who could be back. You wanted tackles, you got 2 tackles, and the Simmons guy can play guard as well. So he could easily plug in if for some reason Sexton or someone else just blows up at right tackle and left tackle. Howland has a great year. If someone's struggling at one of the guard positions, you can throw Simmons in there, and he could take a starting job from somebody. So
I'm not necessarily worried about the moves that everybody else is making. Everybody else is getting the guys that they want to get, and that's perfectly fine. Ohio State with the tackle or whatnot. Yeah, ideally you wanted those kids, but at the same time, you're bringing in Fasusi and all these other kids. I don't think that you're trying to bring in 1-year rentals or just the fact of the matter is you can't have them all. To me, out of those 3, I wanted the Robinson kid, but getting Simmons is not necessarily a consolation. That's still a big win right there. Going and getting the Stanford kid as well with 2 years left
and a red shirt. Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that you're getting guys and you're building that depth, and you're also, you're doing what OU fans want you to do, which is let's not necessarily go get these G5 guys. Let's go get some P4 guys. The Simmons kid wanted by everybody. The Idaho State kid that did not go our way, the DN, he went to Ohio State. So I think that you are seeing this staff do what they usually do, which is give great evaluations on players and try to get in early and often on these kids. But at the same time, I think that they're trying to play the game. It's just that, some are biting, some are not. But the biggest thing, people, is that I think you need to pay more attention to the second wave. Like after this weekend here, a lot of players are going to be hitting the portal. A lot of players are going to be available. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that you may find more value in this group of kids that are hitting the second wave right now, simply because the more premium schools or whatnot, they're going to have those kids.
And a lot of those, our fan base is sort of like in panic mode about the portal a little bit. Like, a high-rated kid hits the portal. Oh, Malik Benson hit the portal. Grab him. He's a wide receiver. Well, he's had 2 pretty average production years at Bama and FSU. I mean, he's not the same guy he was. I mean, it almost seems like, Chris, I really kind of would wish, they'd wipe the recruiting profiles of guys after they've been in college 2 years, right? Like Samuel Mpemba. Everyone's like, oh, A&M got this 5-star elite guy. He was a 5-star elite guy. He's now been in college 2 years and not done anything. So he's no longer a 5-star elite guy. He's just looks like Tarzan, plays like Garfield. It's more like plays like Garfield the cat. He can't get off the, it's like, then OU, some guys are wanting, for instance, like the Mensa money that got leaked today, right? That Duke is somehow, that someone's saying Duke is paying him $4 million a year. which is absolute horse crap.
That's absurd.
I mean, Josh Pate, who I think is
way.
great, is saying, "Oh, I've seen it." I'm like, no. I'm sure the agents told you that. He's probably getting paid over 3 years, right? That's the problem. Everyone quotes these numbers, and you don't know how many years that is because Mensah's got 3 years to play. He's a redshirt freshman. He's got 3 years to play at Duke. Is Duke paying him 1.3 over 3 years? And it's like $4 million by the time he's done? Yeah, I could buy that. But Duke's not paying anyone under 6'11" who's a power forward under, if you're getting $4 million from the Dukies, it's because, you're 6'11", you're Cooper Flagg or any of those. I don't follow basketball recruiting other than know that, the Cooper Flagg guy they got was unreal. And that, I mean, you're 6'11" and, you're like Giannis, you're the next Greek freak and they're offering you $4 million to come to Duke for a year. I mean, let's be real here. Duke football hasn't all of a sudden just pulled in the NIL money to pay $4 million a year. Now, 1.3, yeah, I could buy that. And, obviously OU paid, to get Mateer. OU opened up the pockets to make sure we could get Mateer from Miami and some other folks and from Chapel Bill. I'll steal that from
Chapel Bill.
Chapel Bill. I'll steal that. And obviously North Carolina's adding some folks. Texas Tech is throwing oil money around like it's going out of business. So, OU's trying not to overspend based upon recruiting brand name of players and positional need. And I think, okay, that makes sense. I would like them to add another defensive end. I think obviously we would like another corner based upon our losses, but yeah. A little source told me that I think there's 25 OU players in the portal at this point.
Yeah,
about 4 of them OU wanted back.
So where are we at? We're still spending money. Is there Oklahoma Ganja Grower up here saying we only have 5 or 6 more spots before we hit that 85. So maybe we're just waiting to see who hops in the portal from these remaining playoff teams.
I would wait. I'd wait at wide receiver. The one thing that's interesting out there is Keon Brown, the guy that we signed the same year we signed Petaway in 2023. But he was ineligible to go to OU, so he went to JUCO. He's blown up at JUCO. He's bigger. He's done really well at JUCO. And now he's no longer got 2 years. Apparently, he's got 4 years. He doesn't show up until May, but physically he is elite and looks unbelievable on the JUCO ranks. And OU was obviously involved with him before. Do you go there? Do you wait until you see what happens in the January timeframe to see if there's somebody who's just like, all right, if you hold your powder back, right, and you hold your credit balance back a little bit, right, you might see OU leap at somebody because they think just from an evaluation standpoint he's better than anything else we've seen in the portal. Obviously, I think everyone's to talk tight end, and again, it's impossible to not understand that we're being so negatively recruited at tight end that it's hard to get anybody, right? I mean, and how easy is it to negatively recruit us at tight end right now? Joe John Finley's leaving; he's not going to be your coach. You don't know who your coach is going to be, so you don't know how the tight end is going to be using the offense, and you don't know who your coach is. So I wouldn't go to Oklahoma. And right now, OU has like no defense against that, like none, because if it's that well known in the coaching community, you've been seeing Arbuckle contact tight end recruits first, according to some stuff that's been flying around on social media. So, and it's not like Joe John was a great recruiter before this. He's a terrible recruiter, and then you completely handcuff him, and he becomes the worst recruiter I can possibly imagine at tight end. He's a lame duck tight end coach who is a terrible recruiter to begin with. So what's below absolute zero in recruiting skill? I don't know. We're about to find out that can you be colder on the recruiting trail than Joe John Finley? yes, you could be lame duck Joe John Finley trying to recruit.
Wow.
So
Not
You're
pulling
on-
any punches tonight, Chris Mason.
well, I mean, am I wrong? Tell me I'm wrong
You're
here.
not. You're not.
Let's shift it real quick to the comments. Jason, I want to get your words in here before we get off of here in a little bit. But Corporate Doug, this is way back up there. Corporate Doug says, of all the receivers we got, he says, who do y'all think will be the most impactful? He's saying Giovanni Gibson. Then if we skip on down here, David Whitehead, he said Zion Kearney is my surprise star next year. What are your thoughts on that, Jason? Who?
Both of those guys I like a lot. Giovanni Gibson, obviously we've seen a lot of him and what, just since Marcus Dent brought him up on the show that day. And then of course he's the nephew of Coach Ricks, who's on our show quite a bit too. So excited about seeing him. And you go through and watch his film, and he is that guy that he's a dog, man. He runs amazing routes. He's big. He's, he's built up. He's an explosive player, man. And, our guy from the Blitz City podcast, shout out to Kobe. He was talking about him earlier in the year, but I think when he was around 700 yards, he was like, this guy's the best offensive player in the SWAC. If he doesn't win the SWAC Offensive Player of the Year award, stop giving it away. Stop it. They just might as well stop doing it, because apparently they've been going to the wrong guy pretty much every year. I think he's going to be an impact type of player. Obviously, there's going to be a step up to the next league, coming into the SEC. But when you look at a guy that's 6'3", he's pushing more around that 220-pound range, and he's running a 4.4. That's fast, man. That is fast for a guy his size. He catches the ball at his high point. He attacks the football. And again, some of the routes, if you're watching his route running, it's elite route running. So that's the kind of stuff that travels. That's the kind of stuff that travels with receivers. I love what he's got. I mean, I pretty much think he was in talks, or at least everybody in the SEC had gotten a hold of him. It wasn't necessarily that he had. I think I misspoke one day and said that he had offers from everyone. He had a lot of offers. He actually, when he already was committed to Arkansas when all this kind of got started, and then he decommitted from there, and before, and started talking to a lot of different folks. I think there were some teams that he declined talking to from the SEC as well. So I think they're fortunate to get him. As far as Zion Kearney's concerned, I know if you listen to guys like, even from the Alabama guys, I'm thinking about Coach Sean, that's always on with Ty and those guys. Coach Sean was super high on him before this season. Said he felt like he would be a guy that could make an impact for Oklahoma right away. You have to believe that having, a competent game plan in play next year would only give you a better opportunity to do that,
Obvious passing situations. That's why I think that somebody like Barrett Sharp, if he stayed around, he would be great in this situation, because you're not throwing him out there and saying, hey, you played quarterback in high school? You played quarterback your first year at Southeast Louisiana State? You can run this trick play. No, you're not throwing him out there. You're putting him in situations and you're scheming him up to where he can excel. You're not putting him out there to go and play at Blue Mountain State. Like, this is just not. I don't know, what are you doing? You got to put your players in positions to excel. So I think being an obvious passing plays and not using Kearney in motion and all the rest of that stuff, and letting him just be a straight up dog as a wide receiver. That's
absolutely
great. Bringing in
I like Kearney a lot, man. I like Kearney a lot.
Having Satanga, who can be out there with Deion Burks at the same time. You may be smaller, but I think you're explosive with those guys, with both of them. But having both of them out there who can do that and recognize what the defense is doing at the same time, and letting your carry-ons, your Zion Kearneys and guys like that being obvious passing situations, being schemed to do different things, do things that they want to do. Not saying that they can't do the motion stuff or whatever, but to me, that's a big ask for those guys. You want to be able to groom somebody like Zion Raggins and say, hey, we want you to hit the weight room and get bigger. We're not asking you to be 225. We're asking you to be at least close to 180 or whatever the case may be with that speed. So that's the stuff that you really want to see happen, is that these guys get put in the situations that they can excel in instead of using them as, I mean, Kearney's not a slot guy. He's not. But he's a very, very talented guy. So just got to see. Just got to see.
So on Gibson, two things to echo on what Jason said. One, someone dug up a high school interview with him. He shifted to quarterback to help his high school. They didn't have their quarterback situation was terrible. So he basically played Wildcat quarterback his senior year. So that's maybe a little bit of why he fell under the radar and ended up at Arkansas Pine Bluff, because he wasn't playing wide receiver. He was playing quarterback because that's what his high school needed him to do. And the other thing is, and Jason, will probably concur with this, is, guys, there are all kinds of cornerbacks in the NFL that play in the SWAC. I mean, when you're in the SWAC, you're playing press coverage all the time. This is not, you look, and there's always DB talent that ends up on draft day from the SWAC. So it's not like, it's a good league from that perspective, right? That you have, you always see a couple of cornerbacks always going high in the draft from that conference, from that area, because it's just because they play press coverage. That's all those schools do all the time, basically. So I think Gibson, who Gabe Eichert says he looks like an NFL receiver. You just see him on the hoof. You see how he's built. He looks like an NFL guy. So on Kearney, I've been a little stunned that we didn't see kind of a Malcolm Kelly kind of like Kearney midseason rise. And I think that's mainly because of the complete discombobulation of the offense and not knowing where to go, what to do, and the constant other veterans coming back at wide receiver and all that kind of nonsense. But I think Zion reboots and has a big year next year. I think in spring we'll be looking at him going, well, where was this guy last year to help us? And I think it's going to be because he just he'll get rebooted. Emmett Jones will love this offense for his wide receivers. So I think from all indications, right, from Emmett's background. So I think we'll see a big reboot there. But I think we may be, although everyone's saying, who's this guy from Arkansas Pine Bluff? We may be saying, well, that's what, we told you back when Jason told you back when we picked him up that he was going to be a dude.
There's been a lot of bullets flying his way too, that, why are we going after this guy? And it's like, dude, watch his film before you say anything.
Well, just look at how physically he's built, man. The kid the kid is, again, Gabe Eichert, reviewed him and just, loved him on film. I mean, and Gabe is, again, not going to pull any punches on the guys OU gets. And
no doubt. And they were talking about, and actually something that came up is that I think he did get in a little bit of trouble in high school or something like that, which is why he ended up having to go kind of this long route to get here. Because talent-wise, he's there, and he's got a little brother that's apparently, I think he's either next year or the year after that he's going to be ready to rock and roll too, running back and another stud. So, I mean, it could end up paying off pretty well for you. It's one of those things. They said something about him running a 4.2. I've heard more like low 4.4s, but for his size, that's stupid fast.
And he's so coordinated. He's so coordinated for a big guy, right? It's not a lumbering.
I see a lot of people. I'm sorry to cut you off, Chris Mason, but I was just gonna say, I know some people, talking to my aunt, they're not necessarily big on the Keontez Lewis kid, but I think those are valuable pieces to your offense because he's another guy.
Well, and he has P4 experience. Everyone's like, we're not signing any P4 guys. It's like, well, the Lewis guy was a P4 signing out of high school. He's played at UCLA and Wisconsin. So those are P4 schools. So what do you want?
He's 6'2", 185. Put up some numbers this year at Southern Illinois. I know people will say it's not the greatest competition, but to me, I think the biggest thing you're trying to do is if we can't get back to where we had just like, you know, the Iglesias and Malcolm Kelly experience, where we have like, you know, the Hollywood Brown and CeeDee Lamb experience, where you got two guys, right? Two dudes out there. Like, if we can't get back to that, at least we can get back to having a collective group that is really good, that is sure-handed, catches the ball, can create separation, and, you know, you're just fine. But, you know, people, if he could come back from the injury, Jaden Gibson is another guy that I think you got to be worried about as well, because you got some dogs out there. The guys that are coming in,
about that the other day.
The guys that are still there, I think you got some guys. Jason,
Gibson and Associates, man. Gibson and Associates. Hey, those two guys together. I think that he has to be a big part of your plans for next year. Jaden Gibson must be. I mean, you got to figure, when did he get injured? Was it either
August 1st,
the very start? Okay, so we're looking at a full year by the time. I mean, and from everything we've heard, it seems like he's doing well with all of his, you know, with all that kind of stuff. But I feel like you have to expect for him to be a big part. Obviously, Deion Burks coming back is huge. If you know, health, you know, health notwithstanding, hopefully he's healthy and ready to rock, because with the guys, I feel like the guys that you've already brought in, and, you know, yeah, I'd love to, hey, thanks for the $4.99 there, Dilligaff. Why can't OU get the Branch brothers? Is it an NIL or drama issues? I don't know. I defer that to Mason, but it doesn't feel like he may be a little high expensive wise, but I don't know.
It's not only that, but you got to factor in. I think Chris Mason can back me up on this. Now,
does his brother have anywhere in the OU secondary to play?
Exactly. Does he have anywhere to play? And if you're asking me for $4 million, what the hell is he asking for? You're asking me for $4 million, which I'm going to say, hey, son, you're going to get 3.5, and your brother's going to get $500,000 at a priority walk on. I don't know where he's going.
Look. I love
4-star DB, but
I love me some Zachariah.
Hold
Branch.
on, Chris Mason. If he can't play and excel up there at USC, I don't want to hear none of that crap, Jason. Stop that. Come on, man. Stop playing.
Look, there's only one guy or there's only one brother combo at wide receiver I'm giving $4 million to. And that's Jeremiah Smith, and anybody he wants to claim is his younger brother. Okay? Jeremiah Smith and some guy he pulls off the street and says, "This is my brother Bill." If they want to come to Norman, sign $4 million right now. I love me some Zachariah Branch, but unless you're Jeremiah Smith, maybe Cam Coleman, that's it. The line starts after that. Maybe, I don't think this is. I love the guy, but you got to be realistic, right, about what you're doing with your money and where you're spending your money, right? And if Deion Burks and Satagna star ball out, then, and Jaden Gibson comes back and plays really well, because, in July, we were hearing that Jaden Gibson's about to have his best year ever, right? He's about to dominate. He's dominating. Again, unless you're the Adrian Peterson of wide receivers in the portal, I'm not giving anybody $4 million at wide receiver, right? If you're Marvin Harrison Jr., you're Julio Jones, you're Jeremiah Smith, maybe if how do you say his first name? Tatorio McMillan guy at Arizona. If he was in the portal, not going to the NFL, I'd give him $3 million. But other than that, the margin between what Zachariah Branch can give OU, between what we just gave Isaiah Satagna, is probably, it's not worth, the juice is not worth the squeeze. The difference between those two guys is not $2 million worth of NIL money. I hate to say it, but it's just not. I mean, and I love Zachariah Branch, but, I need $4 million. I need a date with Elle Macpherson. It's just not happening.
Like I said, $4 million. I'm giving you 3.5 and your brother 500K.
But he
as a
can't
quality
play. I mean, literally, OU. The reason OU's not talking to any safety players, right? Even though we lost Billy Bowman, why? Because Bowen's starting, and then we've got 3 carnivores waiting behind him. And it's why Makari Vickers left, right? Because he knew, well, I need to probably move to safety. I bet he's going to be a great safety at Colorado, but you know, he saw Bogo, Powers, and Hardy. You know, I mean, where's Zion Branch playing for us next year? And that didn't even count Marion Robinson and the Wimberly kid, who are both, you know, both badly underrated. So it's like playing to break our safety group. You can't play like you. Do you guys not understand that the Brent to play linebacker for Brent Venables requires like a 2-year development course?
Yeah.
Before you're competent. This is why I kept screaming for us to sign another linebacker from high school this year. I don't think portal linebackers is going to work for the way OU needs to develop linebackers for this defense. You're not going to find anybody who is going to be able to just walk in and play it. Corporate Duck is completely on the money there. He doesn't. It's not like Branch put up 1,200 yards this season. I don't know why USC used him the way they did, but I mean, the juice isn't worth the squeeze right now, and I could be wrong on that, and he'll probably go somewhere and have 1,200 yards at somewhere else. But you know.
Well, and his playmaking ability is great. I think that's what Conjagrower here is saying. But to be honest with you, it's been mostly in the kicking game. You know, you haven't seen him in the lineup as a receiver much, so we don't know what he is there. In fact, and if Lincoln's not getting a lot out of him at receiver, and they haven't been running the damn ball very much the last few years,
that's a flag right there.
It should be a flag of some kind. So I don't know that I would want to go and overpay for a kid like this either. I just don't see it. Now, do I like him? Sure. I think that talent-wise, I mean, I think that maybe you do get something out of him with EJ. But I also think that there's other guys out there that, like I said, we know that these guys that they brought, just talking about Giovanni Gibson again, the kid's polished, man. I don't care where he was playing. He does have production. And I think Thrice said it up here just above. You don't really need him to go out there and have 1,200 yards next year. If he gets 600, 700, 800 yards and 6, 7, 8 touchdowns, that's a huge, huge year for you as a first-year player at Oklahoma.
I think some fans just want to see production, man. I think that's
something you're starving for it after this year because it's been a shit show, you know?
Yeah, the biggest thing is just healthy, man. I want to get to August 30th, and we say, all right, fellas, no excuses this year, no holding back. Everybody's healthy. Let's get it. Let's go out here and do what we need to do.
We're going to have injuries. It's just it seems mathematically impossible for the same thing to occur at wide receiver again, right? Just literally, if that happens, then you need to bring in every spiritualist from every creed, faith, that religion you can find and de-exercise, the wide receiver room in some manner. Everybody, every religion, we don't care what religion you are, or faith, or come in and de-exercise the room. But overall, I think, I think one of the portal guys is going to hit. I think one of the freshmen is going to hit. And I think one of the guys from the 23 class, the 24 class is going to have a big bounce back. And I think between Burks and Gibson, one of those guys is going to have a great year. And we have a quarterback and a system which our wide receiver coach knows inside and out and how to develop guys. And he has proven with that system that he can develop big receivers and he can develop other guys. So I think the panic in the wide receiver room is a little overblown, and I like the guys we picked up. I think it's more about production than it is anything else, and development on the wide receiver side of things.
Sure.
And again, it won't shock me if Elijah Thomas is not having just an unbelievable freshman year, and we're all like, oh man, we got so
that
many.
was another one I was about to bring up. What about him?
And he's on campus in January,
Yeah.
and you give him all those resources with Emmett Jones and all the strength and conditioning. He could be 6'2", 200 pounds, and looking CD like. As I said, that kid he's not taking everything off the bone. He's breaking the bones and eating the marrow inside. So if that kid's coming. And I'm just ignoring Manny Choice a little bit because I love Elijah Thomas.
Emmanuel Choice is a 6'4", 200-pound kid too. That's just he looks like he's going to be ready too, man.
And I think we can't understate how badly the offensive mess blew up our development for our players. Offensive line, running back, wide receiver. All these guys had a terrible development year because DeMarco, EJ, and Bill didn't know what the hell Latrell was doing day to day. So how do you
Latrell didn't know what he was doing?
How do you
just random people?
How do you develop guys when you don't know what the scheme is? And just look at the development Howland and Ozetta did in the last 5 games, right? Where they were to where they are now, right? And and then a consistent Bill's like, okay, well, I at least know what's going on, so I can at least coach these guys up now. And they're playing. Are they making mistakes still? Yeah. But are they 100 times better than they were August 1st? Yes. And I think you're going to see that, that whole process. When you lose an entire offseason of development, it just sets you back so much. You see the defense knew what they were doing, knew what was going on, and you saw how guys developed year over year, right? We just had none of that on the offensive side of the ball anywhere.
Explosive play. I think the first, it was kind of like I compare. Okay, let me say it first. I think some OU fans may cry when they see their first 20, 30-yard bomb next year when Material's throwing it to one of these receivers down the field and he connects on one of these 20 to 40-yard bombs, right? And you're sitting there just thinking to yourself damn, this is crazy. I compare it to kind of a lot of OU fans the year that we, obviously, and DG didn't play. We'll just say that game right there where, Texas beat us. That next year when we scored that first touchdown, I looked around with some of the OU fans I was around. And I saw a couple actually break out in tears. It was man, it feels good. You know what I'm saying? You just want to see an explosive offense, but just an offense that is it just makes sense. It's logical, right? You don't want to be second guessing yourself.
Off of what they're doing. They're doing things for a reason.
Yes, they're doing things for a reason. And when they're building, they're actually building to try to build the house, opposed to just putting more cement down to build a foundation.
Right.
Well, it's you built a room with no doors. Oh, oops! What happened there? It's when you saw Arbuckle be interviewed by Castiglione Jr. and George Stoya. When you heard him being interviewed, you're like, okay, I may not love the scheme he's bringing, but this guy certainly has a philosophy. He's got mentors he believes in, and he has a career development progression. Is he very young? Yes, but he seems. When he's just describing his philosophy and how he got to where he was, you're like, okay, this all makes sense. This guy is at the very least, we're going to know what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Y'all say he's young. I say he's hungry. Y'all say he's young. I say, hey, he didn't get here by luck. He got here. Look, I think Arbuckle's going to be just fine. I like his scheme as is. But I think that if he's true to his word and true to what he does, he's going to come here and figure out what does his personnel do best and adapt to them. And that's what should happen, opposed to.
And he does that year over year. He's got a record of doing that. It's not just like coach speak. I have a quarterback friendly system. When he was being interviewed, just started to cut you off there. When he's being interviewed, he said that Tyson Helton said to him, he goes, look, if you're not making your system adaptable for quarterbacks and friendly for quarterbacks, you're going to be out of a job, because every 2 years you're going to be changing who you have. This isn't the NFL. You're not going to keep some guy for 10 years at quarterback. So you better make your system quickly adaptable and quickly absorbable by quarterbacks. And that's what Arbuckle was talking about in that interview, that these are my mentors have emphasized to me, this is what you got to do, because you're not going to get, you need, this is just the way college works. You're going to be swapping out the guy every year or two. And you can't, a 4-year starter at quarterback is a myth, right? I mean,
yeah, hell yeah.
Look, guys, we've been on here for almost an hour 30. We got on here. We even went overtime. We're reaching those Jason numbers right here. Jason be on here for like maybe more than an hour or so, hour and a half.
2 hours, 3.
Jason will hit the same topic 3 different times, and you know what? You sit there all 3 times and you say, "I didn't see it like that the first time. This is interesting. Let me tap back in. Let me tap back in. I was running on E. Now I'll fill back up. Jason, talk to me, baby. You know what I'm saying? Look, parting shots on this pod right here as far as the game is concerned. This week against Navy, and just any more. I think obviously it's Christmas. Right now, I guess you could say it's kind of a dead period if you want to say that, but just kind of your expectations moving forward to the portal. Jason, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think that it makes a lot of sense what you were talking about earlier when it comes to this, the kid out of USC and his brother, because of the fact that you just don't got any room in the secondary for his brother. So why would he come? And if he's really asking for that kind of money, that's just crazy talk. The production isn't there for that. Are there some guys that you'd love to see him go and really make a real move on? Sure, absolutely. In the end, I don't know that if I was really going to make a move, it'd be at a big time tight end. I don't know that you can do that as long as Joe John's in the house. That would be my concern with that. But then I'm kind of with what Chris Mason was saying, go out there and get another corner, man. Maybe add another big edge rusher that, a guy that can make an immediate impact. I think that's who you should be looking at this point. Immediate impact guys. We were talking about the money that they're supposed to be spending, this extra money. And they
use it to get material. So we do know that
sure.
They're spending it in a way that makes sense. And I'd rather they're doing that than just the cattle run that Texas Tech is doing, just dropping cash everywhere for
wild, right? They better win something this year and not just, at this point, I don't know what Joey McGuire keeps saying, the Big 12 runs through Lubbock, but I don't think anything's really
Big 12 does run through Lubbock, but it's about
runs all
through like this. Yeah,
it's
5 guys in one Texas Tech. That's all I got to say.
I thought the Big 12 sewer system ran through Lubbock, right? Isn't that?
You said what?
I thought the Big 12 sewer system ran through Lubbock.
Yeah, something like that. I'm just saying.
It's not looking good, really. I can't imagine what they think they're accomplishing by doing this. The guys that they're adding, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I think that in the end, we can do the doom and gloom thing and all that stuff, or we can just realize that college football has changed and you have to change with it. Boomer 129. Kind of is what it is. But in the end, I think that's where we are. As far as the weekend's concerned, I feel like they're going to be fine. I think that defensively, you just got to stay home. I think you just got to stay home. If I'm worried about anything, it's, do we see anything different than what we've been seeing? And I do like the fact that we're probably more healthy on the line than we've been at any point this season. I like that Michael Hawkins is in instead of Jackson Arnold, and I like that. Really, do you expect them to have a great defense at Navy? No, you don't. So, yeah, I think you have a good weekend.
Chris Mason.
Well, first comment, we didn't hit any of the CFP stuff, but to me, I don't think the margin from where OU is to being a 12 seed in the CFP is that far from the teams we saw over the weekend. So let me just say, I don't think it's a massive chasm OU has to leap over to somehow get to be a 12 seed if we had the right schedule. I think I'm fascinated to see what Michael Hawkins does on Friday. Just legitimately, okay, what could this be in the hands of Ben Arbuckle in terms of what could he do with this guy? What's the untapped potential here? And then on the portal, I think we're going to see OU wait until January. There's a couple of guys that jumped in. There's a Tennessee guy that's interesting at D-line. There's a couple other D-line guys that maybe there's a couple of Iowa guys that might. There's an Iowa defensive end that might jump in. That's a rumor rolling around. Iowa's defensive ends are very good, so that would be an interesting addition. But again, I'm praying come the new year, January 2nd, the tyranny of the Joe John Finley era at tight end is over, and we can at least talk about a new guy and at least not have to keep answering the question of that's my New Year's wish. My New Year's resolution is a new tight end coach. I don't have to hire him January 2nd. Just the thought that the tyranny of evil that is Joe John Finley at tight end is over, and we can talk about somebody new, even if we haven't hired him yet. We can throw names about. Okay. So that's my hope. Merry Christmas for all, and a new tight end position available for the new year.
So
Merry
I'm
Christmas,
going to piggyback off of that because I'm going to say this right here. Okay, God doesn't like ugly. And the reason why I say that is because 3 weeks ago I laughed at Okie Light because I still to this day don't know who was holding who hostage. Was it Gundy? Was it the board? I don't know. I don't know how that showdown happened. I even heard that they had the mascot, Pistol Pete, show up outside Gundy's house to escort him there with a gun to his head. That's what I heard, okay? I don't know. But I do know that God doesn't like ugly because he has, for some odd reason, kept Joe John Finley here as our tight end coach. And I just know that every day he's there is because I went so hard on this OSU stuff that was happening. So, Father, forgive me. Forgive me now, please, because
you're terrible.
I'm an ignorant person, and I don't know what's going on. But Joe Judd, I know this Joe Judd has.
We got to break out an Amazing Grace here, and
I think we may have to, because I'm telling you.
To sum it up, this is what we think about our boy Joe John.
And call your team trash, because that's what they are.
I don't know, but I just know where there's the way, there's the will. We got to get Joe John.
It's some trash.
It's some trash.
Gentlemen, I'm going to need to bug off. Happy holidays to everybody that listens to this show. I hope everyone has a great time with their family. Safe travels if you're heading anywhere. And we will talk to you guys again post-game of whatever this Navy thing brings us. Bye, guys.
All right,
man. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.